Friends, have you ever stopped to think that the tug of war between America, Russia, and China isn't just about missiles, borders, and military might? The real contest is happening out of sight, in the boardrooms, trade deals, and financial systems that could shape the global economy for years to come. It's not simply about when the Russia-Ukraine war might end. The bigger question is, who's actually coming out on top in this geopolitical chess match, and which player is quietly losing ground? And then there's the US dollar, long seen as the world's most powerful currency, now finding itself under pressure. Many experts believe economic power could shift in the near future, and if that happens, countries like India could feel the impact in very real ways, from national trade policies all the way down to everyday prices. Look at the political climate in the US, with Donald Trump's restlessness reflecting deeper anxieties. Washington knows that a lasting Russia-China alliance could shake the very economic foundations of Western nations. And it's not just about oil and gas. Take Russia's aluminum, for example. Since the war began, China has ramped up its purchases from Russia 16-fold. Everything the West stopped buying, China swept up the supply and got it for 10% to 30% less. That means Chinese factories are humming with low-cost raw materials, enabling them to flood the world with cheap electric cars, industrial machines, and more. Meanwhile, manufacturers in America and Europe struggle with higher costs and shrinking competitiveness. It's not hard to see why Trump is pushing to end the conflict, and fast. But here's the deeper worry: the weakening trust in the dollar. Despite predictions from the West, Russia's economy hasn't collapsed. In fact, it's projected to grow faster than Europe's in the coming years. A big driver of that resilience? Russia and China working in lockstep to edge the dollar out of global trade. Russia is now conducting major transactions in Chinese yuan. Just picture this. In just 1 month, Russia's exports to China topped $10 billion, and nearly 40% of that was settled in yuan. The message is loud and clear. This is more than trade. It's a deliberate move to chip away at the dollar's dominance. Let's get straight to the pressure point in America's situation. The U.S. national debt has now blown past $37 trillion. That's not just a scary number, it's a live, ticking time bomb. Every single year, America has to pay about $1.2 trillion just in interest. To put that in perspective, it's spending more on interest payments than on defense or healthcare. When your pockets are already empty and your debt is piling higher, the question becomes, how long can you keep going before something gives? This is why Washington is desperate for stability, and why peace is no longer just a foreign policy talking point, but an economic necessity. Meanwhile, the U.S. industrial heartbeat is slowing. For 4 straight months, manufacturing output has been contracting. New orders have been falling for 5 months. Jobs are thinning out, while prices keep climbing. That's stagflation, a nasty combination of rising costs and shrinking job opportunities. For ordinary Americans, it's felt in every paycheck and grocery bill. For the government, it's a headache with no quick fix. Now, let's look at why Donald Trump's push for a peace deal has an urgency that goes beyond politics. The answer lies in Russia's resource power. If Russia secures 5 key Ukrainian regions, with Crimea as the crown jewel, it will tighten its grip on the Black Sea, boosting its influence over Eastern Europe's trade routes and energy supply lines. That kind of control over oil, gas, and minerals would tilt the economic balance for decades. And from America's perspective, letting Russia hold that much leverage is unthinkable. Access to those resources isn't just about profit, it's about deciding who holds the real economic crown in the future. So America keeps talking peace, fast-tracking proposals, and signaling at every platform that it wants stability. But here's the catch. Will Moscow buy into it? The Kremlin knows this game isn't really about peace. It's about who dictates the balance of power in the years ahead. That's why Russia is moving slowly, carefully, ensuring it plays from a position of strength. And this is where the whole world finds itself stuck. America fears that stepping back will weaken its future grip on global affairs. Russia believes it now has enough influence to make sure nothing significant happens without its say. In between, other nations tread on eggshells, unwilling to distance themselves from the U.S., yet wary of provoking Russia. What's left is a tense global tug-of-war where every move is calculated and a single wrong step could make the entire situation spiral. Let's turn our focus to India. If the US dollar starts losing its global strength, the shockwaves will be felt here almost instantly. Why? Because most of India's trade, oil, gas, electronics, you name it, is settled in dollars. A weaker dollar means India would have to look for new ways to do business. And if Russia and China succeed in boosting the power of their own currencies, the entire global trade equation will shift. India will face a defining choice: stay the course with the old system or pivot toward new partners and strategies. The same crossroads is in front of Brazil. As South America's biggest economy, it also leans heavily on the dollar for trade. But Brazil is already a BRICS member alongside Russia and China, and it's been exploring ways to trade without the dollar. Prime Minister Modi's visit to Brazil in July 2025 only deepened that connection. Warm diplomatic gestures met practical agreements on development, strategy, and economic cooperation. If Brazil's model works, the pressure on India to follow could intensify. So here's the strategic dilemma. Should emerging powers like India and Brazil keep relying on the dollar, or start building backup plans while there's still breathing room? Because if they wait too long, the shift could happen suddenly, forcing them into decisions they didn't choose on their own terms. Now factor in another turning point: Prime Minister Modi's upcoming visit to China, his first in 7 years, for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Tianjin on August 31st and September 1st, 2025. On paper, it's a diplomatic trip. In reality, it's a loaded signal. It's not just about thawing bilateral relations, it's about defining India's position in a world where the rupee, the dollar, the ruble, and the yuan are part of a much bigger currency chessboard. With US tariffs biting, India paying for some imports in rubles, and Russia and China pushing hard to strengthen their currencies, New Delhi is re-evaluating its long-term trade strategy. Platforms like the SCO and BRICS could be the vehicles for that transformation. Brazil has already been moving closer to Russia, China, and the wider Global South coalition. India, too, is quietly shaping a parallel strategy. Modi's trip to China could set the stage for deeper cooperation on trade blocs, technology exchanges, even managing border tensions, and, crucially, for building trust. Which brings us to the big power question: can the United States slow or reverse its economic slide, or will the momentum shift to Russia and China? And if it does, where will India and Brazil plant their flags? Will they fold into the new economic axis led by Moscow and Beijing, or carve out independent identities as powerful, self-reliant players? For India, the stakes are enormous. A shift of this scale is a challenge. Adapting will demand agility, risk-taking, and vision, but it's also a once-in-a-generation opening. With a young population, technological muscle, and a market of over 1 billion people, India could turn a time of global uncertainty into its own era of opportunity. We'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts and perspectives in the comments below. Your voice adds so much to the conversation. If you enjoyed this video or found it useful, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and tap the notification bell so you don't miss our latest updates. And hey, share this with friends who'd find it interesting. The more minds we bring into the discussion, the richer it becomes.